Hello and welcome back to another week of Sambo iRacing. We are in the Ray Racing Formula Ford 1600 for Okayama short. If you are new to the channel, what I do on these track guides is I do this little intro and then we do a lap in the car where I show you my braking points and the lines that I take, as well as throttle inputs and any tips that I can sort of come up with. Then we go to the chase view to run through it in full speed so that you can see the input telemetry and see how I'm doing my braking and throttle control. And then we go back to the cockpit one last time where I put the driving line on for those people that use it so you can see where my braking points are in relation to that. As I say, if you're new to the channel, this is new for this season that I'm adding the Ray Racing Formula Ford track guides. I am somewhat of a Formula V specialist, although the most races that I run in a week tend to be on the Formula Ford, simply because I find them absolute great fun to drive. The racing's not bad at all up in top split, and I think you're in control, or you're having to control the car an awful lot more than you do in the V. So I find them good fun. I will be doing my best to try and put in competitive times for you. One thing to note, in the Ray Racing Formula Ford, it's always important to get your tyres up to temperature. So I've always run half a dozen laps or so to get them nice and warm before doing these guides. So don't expect to be putting the times that I'm showing in qualifying. And if you are doing that, then you really don't need to be watching one of my guides. One thing I do want to mention as well, for anyone that really is into the sim racing and wants to purchase any sim racing related gear, be that mugs or t-shirts, as you'll see on the screen now, I do own a little website, a little store. Everything's printed in the US. It is the laughterfactory.shop, and if you use the code SAMBO20, you are in for a 20% discount on everything in store. So feel free to check it out. Anyway, let's go get in the cockpit and I'll show you around the lap. Okay, so we're back in the cockpit now, and I'll take you through the lap. So coming out to the final corner, we change from third up to fourth, and we see the blue light, and what we're looking for here is the Dunlop Bridge. And just as we go under the bridge, we're going to brake really hard in a straight line, so up to about 85, 90%. So we're getting full pressure on as we're going in a straight line, and then as we're looking to start making the turn, we start bleeding the brake off, we trail brake nicely down, drop it down into third gear, we're taking a whole heap of curb on the right hand side here, dropping it down into second, and then just as we come off the apex, we're going to floor it 100% throttle, hold it in second, your car will drift out, that's absolutely fine. We change up to third again on the blue light, and what we're looking for here is the Fanatec, the last Fanatec sign on the left hand side, and as we hit that, we're going to brake relatively hard, about 2/3 pressure, that's 60%, and again, we're doing the majority of our braking in a straight line. As we start to turn in, we start trail braking off. We're taking a tighter line here than we do in the Formula V. That's because we can get this car to rotate a great deal more. There's a lot more rotation in the car. It's a lot more fun to drive. You can really throw it into corners. So we come off the brake, and you'll notice here, you'll notice it more when I go through at full speed. But as we change off the main racetrack onto this little side road for the short one, there's actually a drop, and your front wheels and your rear wheels will very, very briefly lose traction, and as they gain traction again, they'll just lock up very briefly, but it doesn't actually unsettle you too much. We drop down from third to second as we continue the trail braking right the way down to here, and you can drop it into first for this corner, and there's another one where I'll go through this, but I actually found that the fastest way for me was to leave it in second, and then you can fully throttle here, again taking a whole heap of curb on the left hand side, and you can hold it in almost with full throttle as you come through this next part of the turn, holding it and then back up to full throttle. It'll drift out to the right hand side, up to third gear, and we're looking for the 50-yard marker here on the right, and this is going to be another quite hard braking marker. One thing that is worth doing is reducing your or increasing the bias from, I think it's 57, I do 6 notches back, so 6 notches towards the rear. That allows me to get greater braking force without locking up the front tyres. It does mean that your car might be slightly more tail happy, but again, as long as we're trail braking nicely, that's not going to be a problem. So braking again in a straight line really hard, using the full rear brakes as well as the front ones, And again, as we start making the turn, trail off nicely down towards the apex. We're going to drop it down to second. This is the second turn that you can actually take in first gear, but again, I found it faster, having tried sort of 6 of one and 6 of the other. Keeping it in second gear, you do bog down very slightly, but it does allow me to get fully on the throttle slightly earlier. And what you lose in that initial acceleration, you actually pick up here, because you'd normally be changing to second around this stage. You're already in second, you're already giving it full beans. And what we're looking to do is, just before we get to the Fanatec signs on the left-hand side, we're just going to dab the brakes up to about 30%, again, just to get the weight over the front tyres so that we can start turning in for the second to last corner. We're going to drop it down to first gear on the apex. Make sure that we're making it round and then fully back on the throttle as we are now. Hold it up to second. And again, we're going to try and keep the throttle going as much as possible. We're going to change up to third for this second to last corner. And we don't want our right-hand tyres to be over this curb, because if you hit them with the damage model in the Formula Ford, you'll jump up and down, and then you'll get a message saying that you have wheel damage. So you don't want to go any further to the right than I am right now. Holding it in third, full throttle, and we're looking for the final braking marker, which is just after the green curbing here on the left. Just after that ends, we're going to brake relatively hard up to nearly 80%. And again, we're going to drop it down to second gear, keeping a tiny bit of maintenance throttle on, and as soon as we know that we're going to make it around the corner and we're hitting the apex, fully back on the throttle as I am now, holding it, up to third, and over the line for what is a 55.375. So I ran about a dozen laps when I was doing these tests, and that was the fastest one that I managed to put in. So it should be relatively competitive when you're actually in a race here. You'll be doing well if you're getting a qualifying time anywhere near that, because obviously you're on colder tyres then. Anyway, let's go to the chase cam and I'll run it through in full speed. Okay, so here we are in the chase view, and let's run through at full speed. Okay, so over on the left-hand side, looking for the Dunlop Bridge, braking hard in a straight line, bleeding it off towards the apex, down to second gear, taking a load of curb, up into third, braking hard again, cutting the corner, down to second gear, holding it firm, moving over onto the right-hand side, again using all the track and everything that allow us, up to third gear, 50-yard marker, brake hard in a straight line, bleed it off, drop it down into second, on the gas nice and early, over to the left-hand side, little dab of brake, over to the right, drop it into first, slam on the throttle, let it drift out, up to second, up to third, keep your foot in the throttle, don't go any further to the right than I have, final corner, down to second, and absolutely smash the throttle. Let yourself drift out, enjoy what you're doing. Nice and easy, over the line for a 55.375. I'll join you again in the cockpit for a final run through with the driving line on. Okay, thank you for staying with me thus far in the video. Now we're back in the cockpit with the driving line on for another full speed run through. So as you can see, when we've got this view going, you are a lot more slidey than you are in the Formula V. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it just makes it more fun. Okay, thanks for watching. I've been Sambo iRacing. You've been great. Hope to see you again next week.